everyone. I'm Erin Fox, and I am so excited to be here in London, so excited to be here to talk to you all. This has been a passionate kind of project that I've come across lately, and as I was refining key concepts and ideas for this talk, I realized that it should have been called How to Get a Mentor Without Telling Them, or Secretly Get a Mentee. So a little change in the title there, so it'll be fun. And of course, I like setting myself up with some goals. So how to be a good mentor and a good mentee, I think, is very important. We don't really talk about how to be a good mentee. Usually it's mentor, and so we'll go a little bit into that. There's always room for improvement in your career. If you hate your job but you love your company, or you love your company but you hate your job, I think mentorship can really help level that out and have a really successful career. And even if you guys are here today, you've came to watch my talk, you've came to React.js, I think it's a great audience because, one, you're really excited to, well, hopefully you're excited, but you're here and you want to further your career, you're here to learn, and so I really think that's a good crowd to be talking to. And so how are we going to achieve these goals? So as I mentioned, we're going to go into mentorship, particularly like engineering mentorship, and how I think that's a little different than the traditional mentorship. We'll talk about some tips of being a good mentor and a good mentee, and I have a fun example of a bad mentor experience that I've had that we'll talk through. And I have some really fun stories of my experience on how I get mentors without telling them. I think it's very traditional to go up to someone and be like, hey, I want you to be my mentor. And it's like, I got a lot of PRs open, like I don't have time. That's a big commitment. And I really see it as how you approach someone. And so I don't remember where I learned this, but if you approach someone like straight on, that's like very intimidating. Like, hey, do you want to be my mentor? Like in your face. But if you do like the side step of like, hey, you want to teach me a little React, like for what, like an hour a week? That's kind of my move, is approach from the side from someone that you want to learn something from. So we'll go into my tips there. And mentorship, like I mentioned the slide in, has really come so natural for me. Up until a little bit ago, I was working on a promotion with my manager, and she sat me down and said, you're really good at finding people to help you with things, and you're not realizing how much you're helping them. And I was like, oh, I thought I was just being really selfish. Like I was just trying to get my job done, trying to, do the day-to-day. But as I slowly started forming this talk, I was like, dang, I am helping a lot of people. And we'll get more into the examples later, but naturally asking for help, putting yourself out there, being in like vulnerable situations, in order to become a better engineer, not only ends up like progressing your knowledge in certain areas, but it has the abilities to help others further their career, find out if there's certain roles that they want to become, and maybe even establish a new thread of learning throughout a company or team. And so I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I'm not afraid to say I don't know a lot of things, but I'm willing to admit I'm very good at getting mentors. And I think the first thing that I mentioned about mentorship, it does feel very concrete. And so I want you to walk away thinking that maybe you already have a mentee, or you're a mentor to someone and you don't even know it. So it's a slowly approaching from the side, I think, is kind of like a thread throughout this talk, and we'll have some more specifics later. So let's break it down. So my definition, a quick one, is teach people what you know and then teach them how to teach themselves. It could be explained a lot of other ways, but for me, that's like the main concept of engineering-specific mentorship. And so with any mentorship relationship, we have a mentor and we have a mentee. And usually the mentor is the more senior person and the mentee is the more junior person. And so I think when you have a mentorship, let's say like now in this day and age, or I don't know if that's the right saying, but it's like you're the mentor the entire time and you have a mentee. And I kind of want to break that. I want to be able to flip-flop the titles. So like sometimes you're a mentor and sometimes you're a mentee. So say I'm really good at React. I'm here at React.js. I hope I know a lot of React because I'm here. And I'm working with someone that's really good at Rails. And I don't know much about Rails. There's like magic that happens and like files get added and it's, I don't know, active record things. And so I want to be able to swap knowledge. So I'd be able to be the mentor when I'm teaching about React. They will be the mentee, even though they probably have 20 years of experience because Rails is so old. But then we'd be able to flip that. When I'm trying to learn about Rails, I'm going to be the mentee, and they're going to be the mentor. So it's a very flop and back title. And I think that's really the big benefit of a mentorship, is being able to learn from each other. And so let's talk about a good mentorship. Someone who is willing to learn and share their knowledge and help others. They're willing to listen and explain hard concepts in a handful of different ways. I think the smartest people, the smartest engineers that I have ever got to work with or to learn from are really great at explaining concepts 3 ways. My favorite thing to do to know if someone, I do this to my husband a lot, I'm like, do you really know that? Do you know, explain that in 3 different ways, to find out if they really know what they're talking about. And so being able to understand a complex topic and explain it a handful of different ways for other people to understand it helps the person learn and understand it, and it helps you to be able to explain things and actually understand the concept. So they also provide guidance by guiding the mentee in a certain direction, not by doing it for them. Don't take over the keyboard. Don't take over the screen. How many times have we been remote pairing and there's oh, can you give me control? Okay, here's the function. That happens a lot. And being able to teach them to teach themselves, helping them find the right file can really make it so you don't have to have this call again. You've helped them discover how to find a file once. Hopefully they'll be able to find it again. Google with them. I can't tell how many times if somebody asked me a question and I asked, did you, not mean, but did you Google it? Did you really, do you know how to Google correctly in a way? And it's a skill. Googling really is a skill to learn. Google with them. Teach them, you're nah, I don't really go to this one. I really go to, this file to find all my code. Oh, let's just copy the Stack Overflow and see if it works. And then they learn about Stack Overflow. They learn your shortcuts. They make the time more efficient. So really teach them, teach themselves. And these little moments are really mentorship moments that you might not even realize that you're doing. And now we have a good mentor, but has anyone had a bad mentor or a bad experience? Because I know that I have a great example if nobody does. Okay, so as I was working as a junior engineer, I was fresh, didn't really know about how to Google, didn't know a lot of things, and so we're pairing probably weekly on front-end React. At the time, it was React Native things, and I was leaving way more confused than when I started, and it really helped me understand and create this effect that I like to call is the seagull effect. And the seagull effect is when you're pair programming and someone comes in, messes everything up, and then leaves you, and you're my linting errors are going off the console, all my tests are failing, and so it's kind of like seagull, the bird at the beach, the annoying bird. So they come over and they crap all over the place and fly away. That's the seagull effect. So they attempt to help you, they make a bunch of changes, then leave you hanging because you got overwhelmed with not knowing how to solve it, you got too busy, or they don't know how to be a good mentor, or they don't actually know what they're doing. They leave you in a worse situation, and you have no solution, no confidence, and you're probably thinking, I suck at my job, I should quit. So the seagull effect is real and also doesn't apply just to engineers. It could be in your life, and we don't want any seagulls in our life. But I was actually doing some great reading on Twitter earlier today, and some British journalism came up, and I found this one. Rescuers learned that exotic bird they found was actually a seagull covered in curry. And I thought this was great. I oh my gosh, another seagull effect. But I haven't had time to figure out what this metaphor would be. I feel like this one is a lot worse than the crapping all over your code and flying away. This one's deleting your code base or something wild. Yeah, when someone is trying to help, the craps all over your code and flies away. I've been a seagull at times, not knowing that I was. It's good to recognize when you have them. If it's happening, I think when you are in a mentorship or you're pairing with someone and it's just not working out, take a pulse check, be I'm not hitting my goals, I'm not hitting my work goals. Time to just take a step back and maybe find a better partner, take a pause. I think, side tip, that's a great thing to do. Instead of saying this isn't working out, you say, oh, let's take a pause. Let's take a break for like a month or so and pick back up in a little bit and see how it is. Because then it's not like, I mean, obviously you want to give them direct feedback and say, yeah, the pairing's not really working for me right now, but I want to take a pause and kind of evaluate my goals and like what's happening and take a pause. So now that we know, don't be a seagull, maybe you're a seagull, there's a cure for it. What makes a good mentee? So no one really talked about this. When I was starting off, I saw all these great mentorship, like how to be a good mentor. I couldn't find a lot on how to be a good mentee. And so kind of have my own stuff going here. So open and willing to learn. They show up prepared. They've Googled the topic. They've watched videos. You've read blog posts. You search the company Slack. Sometimes people post a whole bunch. Slack has so much information. Just get good at searching in there. Maybe they find the right, like in the code base, they find the right file and they say, oh, this is called like new email.js. Like this is the page where all the new emails are. But you don't know like the syntax or the code to find it. So they've done everything possible before they've shown up. I think another thing that's important for a mentee too is learn who you're working with, their communication style, and how you work with them. So I pair with someone who wants to know exactly what we're working on ahead of time. So I'll send them the PR, I'll send them a line of code, I'll send them a little blurb of what we're working on. And other times I work with people that just like to jump right in and it's a fun challenge. So learning about who you're working with is a great skill as a mentee. And I think learning about each other too when you are doing, as a mentee, learning their styles, it really like helps company culture and enhances the experience, and it really speeds up the learning when you are learning. I've written an article about this, how to pair programming when remote. You could be remote or not remote. It's kind of the same thing. Yeah, if you have any tips, I'd love to hear them. You could throw them in here or hit me up on Twitter, but really, really into that. Okay, so I really do believe mentorship is a great way to spend your time. You could spend it during work with someone that you work with or not during work. It's a really good way to just like feel good. Like, you read about all those like older people like about to pass on later in life and they say, oh, what advice do you give to the younger crowd? And they're like, oh, work less and all this stuff, or help people more. Help people more. You never know. You could really feel good about helping people succeed in their career. They wouldn't be maybe in their career without your mentorship that you're giving them. And it's important to know that both you and the other person, whether it's the mentor or the mentee, show up wanting to achieve something. If you don't have that two-way street, it's probably not going to work. It could be really like granular, like how to learn Rails, as I mentioned earlier, or like best architectural practices for a React app, or even if you're just trying to negotiate your salary and you see someone that has a great career with poise and confidence, message them and be 10-minute conversation. I think that's a great, fulfilling conversation that you could have for mentorship. And so I walked through a lot of these like, theories, and now I want to illustrate some specific topics that I've had throughout my career. And throughout my career, I've always had a mentor. Wherever I've worked, I always found people's strengths. So I love meeting people. I love kind of getting in there and learning about what they're really passionate about and what they're really good at. And then I seek them out to help me, which sounds really selfish, and it is. I want to be a smart, more well-rounded engineer, and so I want to find alleys and avenues to help me get there. And the first step is to really figure out what are your weaknesses and who has those strengths. So a weakness of mine could be React. Strength is coming here and trying to find someone, do the side step, and say, hey, you want to teach me some React? And then vice versa. What is someone's strength that I could share with others? So I'm giving a talk. I would love more people to give talk, more people underrepresented groups to give talks, and so I'm more than willing to help people, mentor them, and to be giving more talks. So how do I get mentors without asking them? So I have a mentorship story, I have a pair programming story, and a leveling up story. So I am a full-stack, full-time software engineer at ConvertKit. ConvertKit is a creator marketing platform where we help creators earn a living online through email marketing. I should be better at this. Earn a living online through email marketing products and, more recently, email sponsorships. We're about 20 engineers across 5 teams. And when I joined a few years ago, I knew nothing of Rails. I mostly had React Native and React experience. I was becoming a full-stack engineer, so I wanted to get paired up with someone who's been at the company long enough because I have no idea how to search files in Rails. It's so hard. So I wanted someone that was there for a while and knew their way around. And luckily, we had a formal mentorship program. So you tell what your goals are, you get paired up with someone, and it was fantastic. I didn't ask him. I just signed up for a program, and I got a mentor. And initially, the program was quarterly, so you could switch mentors if you want, but we've stuck together for over 2.5 years now. We meet once a week or every other week. And the reason ours, other than what I've already mentioned about a good mentee and a good mentor, a reason that I think it's been so successful is because of side projects. Sometimes if you have a mentor and you don't really know what to work on, side project is really fun. So I know there's some projects maybe at work that you're like dying to change or dying to do. And this is a great example of what you can. So the code that kind of lies between the squads never really gets completed. And so we ended up working on an email sign-up validation project. And so what that means is we learned that historically, people who sign up at ConvertKit with a Gmail account, traditionally a lot later on in the funnel, end up being higher paying customers. And so we wanted to be able to catch their misspelled email through login. And so a lot of people they forget the dot and .com, or they do Gmail instead of Gmail. And so we were able to work on a mentorship project where we could do a full stack project and catch these, and eventually get to see a lot of the data come through of us getting higher paying customers. And so from the mentor's perspective, he was able to really work on a passion project of his that he would never have gotten to do. And so if you hear someone mention, oh, it would be so great if we had better authentication, or if we have lifecycle components and we want to use hooks, like those are good opportunities and side projects that you never really get the chance to do. But if you want to do it, you can find a mentor, you can find a mentee, do it once a week for an hour or so, and get that through. So the whole time that we're doing these projects, we do it through pair programming. And when I started, there was no pair programming at my company. And I love pair programming. So I wanted to see if we could make it more common and a more real practice across our remote engineering team. And again, I'm selfish, so that's why I wanted to bring pair programming to the company, because that's how I learn the best. And actually, more engineers pair every day at ConvertKit now, and it really helps build a culture of engineers working together, as like Gant mentioned earlier in his talk, go further together. That's kind of the goal. Through participation and encouragement of pair programming, and by bringing and starting to work together more, the entire team gets better for it. And so I think a simple Slack, like a public channel in your company of, hey, I don't really understand use effects. I listened to a couple talks at React.js, but I'm still confused. Does anyone have time to help me with it? And that's a great mini mentorship opportunity. Hop on a call, be able to talk about their lives, great company culture, and then be able to share your knowledge, and everyone's learning. So pair programming is a great way to have these little micro mentorships, kind of sessions without really asking for a mentor. And lastly, can you level up in your career? Another teammate and I started working. I wanted to learn more about Tailwind. In the beginning, I never really knew how that worked. So again, selfish. I really wanted some help learning more front-end stuff. And not only was I getting a lot of great front-end UI debugging experience, but they were learning how to be a mentor. And I would ask them for career advice. I would ask how their kids are doing. I would ask them what architecture would you recommend I do for this API component. And they were discovering that they really liked it. They really liked mentoring. And eventually an engineering managing role opened up. And since they had concrete examples, they had experiences to pull from working with me, they got the manager role. And so mentoring can open up doors for career opportunities. Maybe you don't know if you want to be a manager yet, so maybe mentoring can help you see if you can get there, or you want to be a tech lead. It doesn't have to be a heavy label. It can be mini pairing sessions. It's not a large time commitment if you don't want it to be, and it's a great way to learn different career paths that you're into. And so putting yourself out there and being open to learning as a mentee or mentor can really inspire other people to want to do the same, and that's why I'm here. Setting up a mentorship program with your company, focusing on side projects, pair programming, really enhances your career and others' career. And that's what I hope you get from this talk, just to learn about these ways to get a mentor without telling them, or maybe secretly get a mentee. And again, this is a real rising passion of mine. I think about it probably more than I think about code lately. So thank you for listening.